Okay, g'day Chris, how you going?
Hey, Pato, how you going?
Yeah, really good, really good. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. I'm hoping I can share a little bit of insight into what's been happening.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I mean, last time you were on was just over 12 months ago when before Birdys last year when you did the artwork between the loops. So um what do you remember from that race, the one last year?
do you mean during the race or after the
Oh,
race? Because during the race it became a bit of a blur.
yeah.
Um, I just remember it being like a really different experience doing a run that for the first time didn't feel really selfish. Like, going out and doing a run that, takes days and you have to have a crew around you to support you and whatnot. It was nice to have an event where, I mean, obviously I had to have, three crew there to help with that. Um, so I wasn't able to do away with crew. But in that circumstance, we were all sort of working towards a goal of like helping out some families that really needed help. And at the end of the race, it was nice to do something like that and achieve something, rather than just going and doing a run and saying I ran this many laps, and it sort of changed it a little bit for me. So it took it away from being that self-focused running event to being something that was a little bit bigger than me. And I think I'd sort of lost that in a lot of my running prior to that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was pretty bloody impressive how you were. I remember because I mean I was obviously there, and I remember running. And while I was running, I was thinking, I don't know how Chris is standing up between loops doing his artwork. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
I I kind of think I needed to do a run like that to teach myself a lesson that no, I am capable, and it's a lot of it's in the head or in the mind.
Yeah.
And then so I suffer ADD and have for since I was a kid. And it's been sort of one of those things that I thought I was dealing with really well, but when doing backyard ultras, I realized that I don't do a very good job of dealing with it in
Mm.
certain situations. Um, and from that, I learned that doing the artwork actually was something that kept my mind busy. And it was like a light bulb moment where I realized that you just ran like one of your highest number of laps on this course while doing an artwork, well, as you say, standing up. And it made me realize that all of these problems are in my head when I'm running, and they're just sort of self-fulfilling when you're running. Like, if you're focused solely on the things that are going wrong, you're not focused on what's going right, and
Mm.
it can make it really hard to continue in a backyard. So since then, I've really had to sort of figure out, like, okay, everything that's happening up here, and how do I control what's happening in an event. So
Mm. And you did 33 last year, right? 33
yeah,
laps.
yeah, 33. And
Yeah.
that felt like a mountainous effort because nothing worked properly. My brain didn't work. I think at one I was starting to try and adjust my watch, and the final lap, I couldn't get my watch to work properly. And then I started running, and then I can't remember how many of us were left then. I think there was about five or six,
Mm.
um, maybe even less. I can't remember. But as I was running up the path, we'd only gone like maybe or 100 meters up the road, and we get to the little bridge or whatever it is, and I crossed the bridge, and as I was running, I couldn't get the watch to work still, and then I stopped past the tree, and then I also was having an asthma attack, but we'd been dealing with it all day. They had me on a nebulizer for a little bit, um, but yeah, I think I was starting to suffer a little bit of oxygen deprivation to the brain.
Right.
So little things like trying to get a watch to work or eat food, everything was becoming really difficult. And by the time it actually finished, I think Carl stopped to check if I was okay, and I think I just looked at him and mumbled something, and then I was staring at a tree for a while, and I saw him run off, and because it had got dark at this point, saw the headlamp going off, and I'd sort of taken off at the front, and then I think Aaron and um, Jess had just quit on that lap at the beginning, and I didn't know what was going on, so I kept running. because I don't think I was quite with it. And as so everyone stopped, I think, to give them congratulations on doing a good run. And Carl stopped past as I was having my issues further up course and checked if I was okay. And I thought I was running pretty okay, and I was up the front because everyone had stopped. And after I mumbled some things to Carl, I saw him take off, and I saw his headlamp disappear up around the corner. And you know how you can see it go up to the caravan?
Yeah.
The caravan graveyard. So you've got like a view where you can see like maybe, I don't know, 500 meters up the road. And I could kind of see his headlamp. And I'm like, where did everyone else go? Like, is it just me? And I hadn't realized that everyone else, while I was trying to get my watch to work and that, had actually run past. So I really wasn't with it at this point. So,
Right. So the artwork that you did, it was to raise money for charity. So how much? I mean, it obviously got sold, but how much did it sell for?
that ended up selling for 4,500. So that was through auction. I think there was a little bit of a fight for it at the end. And I think some people missed out, but that's the way auctions go. So yeah, it was a fantastic result. So I mean, I wouldn't have imagined ever doing something like that. So
Yeah, that's unreal. 4,500. That's great. So after Birdies, like, how were you feeling about backyard ultras at that stage?
I was a little bit re-inspired to go back to having another go. I'm thinking, well, if I could do that, then surely I can do another. I can go bigger than that. And I think I was right, but also I hadn't actually worked out why the artwork worked so well at Birdys. So I went on to go do. We did. So after that, we had. I started with a coach, and we started training me up a little bit before at around Christmas time last year. I started with Peter Escott, which is Aaron Young's coach, and initially we just sort of focused on, because I had Sandman coming up, which is a 50-kilometer run that I wanted to do barefoot. So we just focused on just getting me. I think because of all the years of doing backyards, I'd sort of lost focus on what I'm good at. I'm quite a fast runner, and just plonking around doing slow laps didn't seem to be helping me. So I started with Peter, and I gave him I wanted him to. We discussed what we wanted to get out of my running, and I said, I just want you to make me a good runner again, because I feel like I've sort of like gone too far away from my skill set of what I'm actually good at. So and then he started training me up for Sandman, and we didn't have a lot of time. I think we probably only got about maybe 8 weeks of good training in. And for that one, I ran it barefoot, which is probably a really bad idea because there's lots of rock walls and things like that. And it just so happened that some other elite runners signed up for it. So I think both of the runners that were in the front of the field are capable or have done a sub 2:30 marathon. So I was, I knew I was going to be pushing it a little bit, and surely enough, Stuart Caulfield over here is a really good runner. He ended up doing the whole course. I can't remember the time. I think it was like 3:30 for 50 Ks on sand. So I think he went through the the full marathon point in under 3 hours on sand. So just insane race. So, but yeah, credit to him. That was an insane run. So I got third for that one, and I really pushed it. So I hurt myself a fair bit. Got under the 4-hour mark barefoot for the 50K. I thought, okay, that was a good start because I did a lot more training to do that sort of time previously. So I thought, well, Peter's training seeming to work. And then I did light horse, but we'd been starting to track how long it takes me to recover after an event. So we're noticing I'm able to do big Ks in training, like 100-mile training week, but I'm not noticing when I'm overtraining. And how long it takes. So we were checking or tracking my heart rate, and that. So I've gone to zone running, and then we're able to compare pace as far as my fitness level, and noticed that it was taking me roughly, or even a little bit longer than 3 weeks to recover from a big effort. So I think we had, I have to double check. It was either 3 or 4 weeks between Sandman and Birdys. And Birdys, I wasn't really trained yet to run a backyard, but I thought I'll give it a good go. And I put a lot of my methods that I'd learned into place, but I still got a lot wrong. And I tripped over on a tree branch at, I think it was lap 12, and cracked a rib.
Ooh.
So that was really painful. So I was on Panadol and that from lap 12, and I was just hurting to breathe, but still pushing through. And I think I knew it wasn't going to be my race. And I think that's one thing you should never tell yourself, is it's not going to be your day out there, because if you tell yourself that, it's going to be over. So
yeah.
So I learned a little bit of a lesson from that one.
Was making the Australian team, was that always on your like heat map? Was that always your goal, or was it?
It was, because but I've been asked a few times, like by Aaron, why I wanted to make the team, and I was like, oh, because I want to run with all you guys and this, that, and the other, and then I think like over the last 12 months of going down the route of like talking to a doctor and psychologist about the ADD side of things, and it's like I realized that these guys that I'm mates with, I get to train with some of the best, at this sport, Aaron and Phil, and I realized that these guys have a set of skills that I just don't have, and I think that's a driving force behind why I want to be able to compete with these guys, is because I know I can do it, and it's like ticking that little box off in life that I can organize myself, and I can get to the start line every lap, and I can pull the line for the team. So
yeah, cool. And when did you lock Birdys in? Was that like pretty much as soon as Birdys finished last year, you locked it in for this year?
Yeah. Well, I think not straight away, but I did get my ticket a lot earlier than I did for Birdys.
Yeah.
Sean, I had to take Sean a bottle of what was it? I think he says he likes wild turkey,
right?
And because I messaged him about 3 days before the race, and I said, is it still okay, like to sign up? And because there was a bit of a debacle, because I was transferring a ticket and we couldn't figure out how to do it. Ended up a big disaster, completely my fault. And I thought, well, I better not do that to Sean again. So I got my ticket in a lot earlier this time. So yeah. But I think it was also good to get my ticket in, because it's another one of those things. It's like committing and saying that I'm going to do it, and it's something that I just struggle to do. So getting in and paying for my ticket, not looking for a way to, maybe I can discount like this, or maybe someone will swap me a ticket. Just paying for it and saying, no, we're doing this, and this has to happen this time. So yeah.
So Birdys this year was obviously a silver ticket race, so the winner is straight into the Australian team. But did you think about so it was just it was right at the end of the qualifying period too, so like a one throw at the stumps kind of thing. But did you think or consider like going in any races like No Time to Die or traveling interstate to try and qualify before Birdys as well?
I don't know that would have been good for me, because I think I needed that do or die commitment, which I think lacks a lot of the time. And I think it's one of those things that a lot of runners, like might have this opportunity or that opportunity, but if you get one opportunity, you make it work. And I kind of think in hindsight, that's maybe the way I needed to be, is just sign up for one and put everything into that one, rather than just go hope for your lucky day out there, and just sign up for lots, and then you'll have your lucky day and you'll run big. Which obviously doesn't work. I figured out, because everyone has problems out there. I've done 6 or 7 of them, and I can tell you now that everyone that's like, no one's out there having a great time. Everyone thinks they're having their worst run at the time, or something's not going to plan, and even if they are doing well, eventually something happens, and then all of a sudden you're thinking it's not your day. But if you've only got the one day to do it, so you kind of make it work. So, and I think that's probably what I needed.
Yeah. And is this the first time you've ever had gone into a race feeling like that?
Um, yeah, I almost ended up a little bit like nervous and depressed, and like because I was having a proper taper this time, and it was then the preparation that was going into it. Like, yeah, it was always presumed it had to be 60 plus hours, so that was it. And it was like, well, I haven't been that far, so we're just going to have to make it work, whatever happens. So, and I had a crew around me that knows me and knows my, like, they crewed me when I did my 39 laps at Birdys.
Mm.
And so I knew that they knew how to talk to me to get me in the right sort of state of mind, and that to keep me going. So yeah.
You also messaged me a few days ago, and you said that you carefully unpicked every race or backyard you'd done and worked out absolutely everything where you were stuffing up.
Yeah. Yep.
So what are some of the things that you found?
Well, sometimes they come up multiple times. Like, you're going to get something in any race that comes up, and this race is no different. I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit later. But so my first like backyards, obviously you don't know much about what you're doing, so I ran myself low on salts, and then ended up dizzy and whatnot, and you don't really know what's going on, and that was a bit of a reality check. And I wrote down some here just so I wouldn't get confused.
Yeah.
So then I did. Then I had Birdys, and I think because I still had that "it has to happen today" attitude, I went a lot further. But my ankle puffed up and I was having a lot of issues with like my mental side, because I didn't know how to control any of it at that time. I think at one time I ended up in tears, and I had Jess there, which was really helpful as well. She kept me pushing along, but my ankle puffed up, and Phil was trying to get me to continue, but I just said, no, I can't do it. It's not my day today out there. And, my ankle's puffed up and this, that, and the other. Came up with lots of excuses. And then I sort of like got a little bit bored with it for a while, and then didn't really do much backyard sort of training. But then, I'd go for a run with Aaron and go, Birdys is only a month away. I could sign up. And then I'd sign up, and then I'd go to 34 laps, and then it would sort of fall apart again, and it's like, well, I made 34 laps. That's just about 39, and like, how did I like do that without training? And it's like, I probably haven't clued in that I've picked up a little bit more about how to do it, but I haven't done the training. And then obviously I had the run over at Sat Champs, which I did. I obviously thought, well, I didn't train and I got 34, so I'll do lots and lots of training. And I think I put in some 100-mile training weeks. I had an average of like about 140K a week at one point, but I'd gone up to that distance really quick. And I hadn't actually clued up to how my body was responding to overtraining. So in that race, I had some issues with, I didn't have a set of scales or anything with me. Which I had on previous runs at Birdys, and which was really hot, and that kept my I could balance my fluids using my weight and the colour of urination, how many times and whatnot. But I didn't take that to Sat Champs, obviously because it's the other side of the country, and like I could buy one and then throw it out. And I thought, no, it won't be a big issue. And I just left the door open to failure enough that it came through. And I had an issue with I couldn't figure out how to balance my salts when I was, sort of 30 plus laps in, and then the race fell apart again. I think I was really well prepared for that one, but the way I boosted my training really heavily to try and get a big distance meant that I probably could have fixed the salts issue, but the pain in the legs was just incredible from the overtraining. And I've done a few runs now, or actually, when I did Sandman, And then I had Birdys come up shortly after. We ended up with a very short window of again to recover, and the same pain came back in Birdys. And that's, I mean, you're talking about pain that sets in after about 6 laps or something, so really early on.
Yeah.
And it's not a specific area of the legs or anything like that. It's just the entire leg aches. And yeah, and you can run faster or slower, but it really doesn't help. In fact, running faster would probably be more helpful. So it's really debilitating when you're in a backyard ultra where you got to keep moving and you all of a sudden have this pain onset right from, lap 6 or, earlier. So,
Yeah.
So that was a bit surprising, as learning how to manage fatigue and overtraining. So, and then from there, we tracked really carefully how fast I recovered from Birdys and from the data from Lighthorse, and figured out that a 3-week taper is a very minimum, which sort of makes sense in a way. I mean, like when I was doing marathon training, you'd have and I don't know why we've gone for in backyards. I notice a lot of people will do a 2 or 3 week taper, but the reason you do a short taper in marathon training is you're trying to line up to the start line with your VO2 still really high and that ability to run really fast. But that's not actually the key ingredient you need to run a backyard. So I don't know how we've sort of all come to the conclusion that a 3-week or 2-week taper is sufficient for a backyard. For me, it's seeming like 3 weeks is absolute minimum for a backyard to run really well. So
yeah. Do you like track? Do you like wear your watch to bed and track your sleep and your heart rate in bed and stuff like that?
I was for a little while, but then I kind of because I have really bad sleep, really struggle with getting sleep. So I think it's just important for me to get to sleep rather than to try and track everything on it. But don't get me wrong, like I know when I've had a good night's sleep and I get 7 or 8 hour sleep is like amazing, but most of the time it's 6 hours or something like that. So but I do try to get to bed earlier, but yeah, the brain just keeps ticking at night. So
Sure. One of the other things I read about something that you changed or heard that you changed was you either gave up booze or you stopped drinking as much booze.
I actually had to do that for 3 months, or no, I didn't have to do it for any set period of time, but just for the ADD side of things, they wanted me to look, you need to stop drinking. I said, well, I don't really, and they said that, look, no one's going to look at you to try and help you with this if you're drinking. I'm like, fine, and I just stopped drinking. But I was for me, I'd drink like a 6-pack of beer and sit on the couch and watch TV and then go to bed. I wasn't like a wild drunk or anything like that. It was just something that I did to calm myself down. And then it's like, I'm starting to get older. I'm like thinking to myself, I can't do that. I've got family and all of that. And although I'm really healthy now, surely that can't last forever. So I thought, well, I'm just going to have to knock that on the head. So, and I'll still have a beer now, but I don't really drink like I used to. It doesn't sit like I know what's going on in my head, and it's kind of like there's no point trying to use that to go to sleep or to this, that, or the other. It's just like you just have to deal with it. If I can't sleep, I can't sleep. So yeah.
So did giving up drinking, did it help you as much physically as mentally, or one more than the other?
It's just another one of those things that just told me I can do things like that if I want to, and if I put my mind to it. So it's still telling me that everything's up here with these events, and it's not. It's you can come up with all the excuses in the world when you're running, but at the end of the day, they're just excuses. And just getting past that, has been like, I don't think giving up the drinking's made much of a difference to my or those habits of just drinking heavily or every night or whatever. I don't think it's made much of a difference to my performance, but in life, I know that will make a big difference in the long run. So
Yeah, yeah. But did it also like just help you like with run, like just feeling better, like when you're running and like just waking up
I
in the morning?
I don't want to say like it made a big difference, because I think it would give people the wrong impression if they're in that same situation. Your life's going to be amazing and it'll be way different.
Yeah.
Um, the fact of it is, it's just a habit, and it's something that's probably not bringing you a lot of joy. You're not going to feel a massive amount of joy because you all of a sudden gave up. I mean, some people might, and that's great. But on the same note, it's kind of like it's just learning to enjoy the life you have rather than try to make it something that it's not. So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't want to say it's like massive difference and you feel amazing like a different person, because I feel like that might be a bit misleading
Mm.
for someone, and they might go, "Well, what am I doing wrong? Why is this not that great?" It is good, but it's not like this wow experience. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So one of the things I'm interested in hearing more about is you mentioned the strategy that you've been using with scales and balancing your electrolytes, because I know you've mentioned you've had issues with your electrolytes, especially at the Sat Champs, but now it sounds like
yeah.
you've kind of really nailed that down.
Yeah, so I first got the idea of using scales to manage weight. I think it was the end of Light Horse when Phil ran when he ran his 250 something, 250. He's actually probably going to message me and say I got it wrong no matter what I say anyway, because he's a stickler for numbers. So, but at the end of the race, he said that he actually weighed the same as when he started. I'm like, how's that possible? Like, it can't be possible to run for 250 k's or whatever it is and still weigh the same at the end of the run. But I mean, the fact of the matter is he's done it, and I've seen him do it in a multiple races, and like eat small, very small amounts. He doesn't eat huge amounts compared to a lot of people, and but then performs brilliantly. And
Mm.
it's kind of like, how's he doing that? And I kind of had to come up with a way, because I couldn't feel when my body needs something. And I think there's a lot of people out there that don't know what their body's requiring.
Mm.
I think at Sat Champs when I started feeling thirsty, and I thought it's kind of that thirst that you get when you've had too much salt or something and you want to drink water. And I
Mm.
thought, well, I've had too much salt, so I started drinking just plain water, and then started having to go to the toilet every couple of laps. And or no, sorry, a couple of times every lap. So we're talking maybe running like a kilometer, then having to go to the toilet, then another kilometer and a half, then having to go to the toilet. And we're talking like it sounds gross, but it's important. The color of the urine. We're always told that if you're going to the toilet once every lap or twice a lap, or the more you go to the toilet, the better. And if it's clear, that's really good.
Mm.
But what they don't tell you is if you're not getting enough salts, you're still going to go to the toilet if you're drinking water. And what's probably even more misleading is the color of your wee will actually go clear. And the best way to describe it is if you're drinking beer or something like that, and if you go into the toilet, you'll notice that it doesn't go dark yellow, and you're probably going to the toilet more when you're drinking, and it's probably clear.
Mm.
And the reason is probably because you've flushed all your electrolytes out and you're actually dehydrating yourself. And that applies exactly to backyards. So what we would do is I'd get my starting weight. So at Birdys, I had a starting weight of 70 kilos. So I did a carb load would have been started about 5 days out. And I actually stopped a bit earlier than normal, like 2 days before the race, so that I could just get everything clear before the race. So I had a starting weight of about 70 kilos. And then during the race, it only ever varied by about maybe, I think the most we got down to was, sorry, I should actually specify my normal weight is 68 kilos. So I actually put on 2 kilos of weight in the carb load. So at the start line, we were sitting at 70. It only ever varied throughout the entire race by about about a kilo. So I never actually got down to my pre-carb loaded weight during the race. And all we were doing was just watching, making sure we kept my carb intake up and my calories. So like my calories, I don't know. I was talking to Margie before the race, and she said some people like to get around 90 carbs an hour. I actually was probably getting close to that, but I found it very hard to get that much in. But yeah, he's probably talking about 350 calories an hour, 400 calories an hour, which, you know, still decent. And then we would watch. So during the day, we noticed we'd have to drink a little bit more fluids, and that would we'd have. Oh, so we're using like Tailwind, or Trail Brew in that case, and we noticed that during the day I'd lose a little bit, but at night we could almost switch to just having hot Milo with a little bit of electrolyte in it, and that's all I needed. So fluid consumption would vary quite wildly during the day to night, but the weight would always stay around about where it is. So there was a couple of times where it'd start dropping, my weight would start dropping, and we'd see that I was still going to the toilet regular, like once a lap or twice a lap. And I think at one point it started going twice a lap, and it was clear. And we're like, we need to up salts. So we upped salts, and the weight came up straight away. Yeah. And it meant that I didn't have to go to the toilet multiple times a lap. So, and then other times we noticed it was getting like a dark yellow color, or a darker yellow color. And my weight had dropped, but the color was still quite yellow. Yeah. So we could just up fluids. We didn't actually have to up the salts. So
yeah. And how did you up the salts? Did you just take a salt tablet, or did you just eat more solid food?
So we sort of had a two-pronged attack for that. Shannon had brought salt caps with her, which I obviously could just have for in a quick little to just readjust ever so slightly. And then generally we tried to keep it in check with having either salty foods or in the Trail Brew, which obviously has the electrolytes in it. Yeah.
And because you were paying more attention to this than you had before, did you change the type of foods you took with you and the type of food you were eating?
I just took foods that I really enjoyed eating, because that's another thing that I've come to realize. If you get the salts and the fluids correct, your body actually starts functioning like it does normally, because nothing's gone out of whack. So your body's still enjoying having food. So I think the big eye opener was at Birdys this year, and because I also did light horse as well. And I found in those races when I did actually, so normally I wouldn't be interested in eating really heavy stuff or stuff that I thought might upset my gut. But I found as I've got my fluids and my salts like spot on, I can eat anything. So I think on lap 11 or something at Birdys this year, I had a quarter pounder. At Light Horse, was eating pizza, had a whole pepperoni pizza I ate from Domino's, you know. You can eat any, when you get your body functioning correctly as far as fluids and that, it's more likely to be wanting to eat things. So I come in from some laps and want hash browns and stuff like that. I think on one lap at Birdys, I was craving hash browns. This is, we're talking, 24 hours running or something, and all of a sudden you got cravings for hash browns, and you're like enjoying and looking forward to things, which is like encouraging when you're at that point in a race, because normally you're just like, I want it to end, but instead I'm like, hash browns would be great, Yeah. And then I came in from that lap, and blow me down, it was like I think Jocelyn, she was spot on. She already had made hash browns, and I hadn't even asked for them. So I think there's a bit of telepathy going on there.
So physically, like, it sounds like it worked, and like you were feeling really good for the whole race. Is that right? Or did you have any down periods?
I actually had rolled my ankle or tweaked the top of my ankle. So we're talking the outside ball of the ankle, like going up the leg on the outside edge. I'd done something to it. And so I'm running in barefoot shoes and there's like a lot of rabbit holes around. And I think I managed to tweak my ankle and it was like kind of like an electric shock going up the leg a little bit initially when it happened. I'm like, oh, I've done something. And I thought, oh, well, it'll go away. But unfortunately, in these races, you can't really, there's nowhere to hide. You can't just stop the race and just, oh, I just need to work this out for a bit. So I just had to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been about lap 15, it was already starting to swell.
Mm.
And, but, you know, this is my do or die race and I just had to be there until it finished. So,
Yeah.
it was kind of one of those things I just threw in the back of my mind. I don't think I even said anything to the crew till about lap 20 or something like that. And I said, my ankle's getting pretty swollen and I've done something to it. But it was kind of a case of, no, we're just going to have to stick at it. So, yeah. Yeah, so it did go wrong in this race a little bit. So,
what type of shoes did you say you were wearing?
So I run in a lot of my training in barefoot.
Yeah.
And I'd noticed that the races I do particularly well at were the ones that I had minimalist shoes on. So Light Horse, that wasn't really a race, that was just a training run. I noticed that so the first 2 hours I just walked with Brad for a bit. That was great. That was the best way to start a race.
Mm.
And then from there just took off running. And when it got to, it started getting cold at about the 2 hour mark. I said to Brad, so I think I'll start running because it's getting a bit cold. And that was just in the barefoot shoes, or the minimalist shoes. So they're only about, I don't know, they're probably only about 6 mil thick now.
Yeah.
They're a bit wider thicker when I first got them. And just noticing that the running was really easy in those shoes, and it made me keep my form better rather than going to a terrible running form, which then obviously puts a lot more pressure on the joints and ligaments, and so it kept things running a lot more smoothly. And so since then, I've tried to keep my training as focused on my form and my correct running and obviously running down on the oval on the grass, and that was probably the closest I could replicate Birdys as far as what it could potentially be. It didn't end up happening to be rough at the time, but yeah. As far as would I've tweaked my ankle if I was, because of the shoes, like maybe if I was in, bigger shoes that I may not have tweaked the ankle, but or trail shoes or a big pair of hoppers or something, maybe I wouldn't have tweaked the ankle. But on the same note, there's no way I would have been able to continue running that race if I wasn't running in a 4-foot or barefoot sort of style, because the lowering of the front of the foot on the ground when running actually took that ankle out of the equation a little bit, so that the pressure wasn't on it as much. So when I actually walked, it actually hurt more. So yeah, I'm kind of the opinion if I was still heel striking, I think my race would have been over. So, and yeah, and interesting, the longer it went on, the longer I thought, well, I've done this for this long on this foot. If people want to keep going, then that's fine. I'm just going to keep going. So yeah.
And when you talking about your training, I've noticed that on Strava, a lot of your runs you stop at 0.99. Is that on purpose or just for fun?
Oh, it's just on purpose. I think it sometimes people like to round up numbers, and I just
Yeah.
I notice it sort of grinds people a little bit if they see 99.99.
And
one day I'll go out and do a 99.99 run.
Yeah. So when you were talking about this weighing yourself to balance your electrolytes thing, was that something that you just taught yourself or thought of yourself, or did you have a resource that you read, or did someone teach you how to do that, or how did you think of that?
I think through trial and error, stuffing up enough times, and I think the first time I used the scales was at Birdys when it was really hot, and I know a lot of people have struggles. And then I think it wasn't until I'd used it a few times and I started to get a correlation of how it all worked together with the food intake, because you could stuff up something else quite easily and not know what's going wrong. But it was after through trial and error I figured out that no, if you actually just get if you're going to the toilet 2 or 3 times a lap and your weight's dropping, then there's something wrong. As far as like if you're going to the toilet and it's really clear and it's and if you're going 2 or 3 times a lap and your weight's coming down, then you're still flushing out your electrolytes at an alarming rate if you're going to the toilet that much. And then if you get all of that wrong, your fluids start going down, you can't get enough food in, and then it's just sort of a downward spiral. And I know some people can get it right without those sort of that input or from numbers and things like that. And that's all credit to them. Some people are brilliant at it. I just was one of those people that couldn't get it right no matter what I did. I needed something like that was hard evidence that I was on the right track as far as what I was putting in my body.
So basically the basic rules is if you're losing weight and peeing like more than once, or if you're losing weight, then you're losing electrolytes. Is that the basic?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's a little bit more complex. So, so obviously, like you need to eat and you need to keep your calories up. So you need to have a rough idea how many calories that you need to eat an hour. And so where the scales would come in is I would be weighed at the end of every lap. We would get away with a little bit of it sometimes on this because I know like we might miss 1 or 2. But we would try to weigh me almost every lap as I'd come in. So we knew how much I'd take in. We're aiming for around about that sort of, I think we're probably hitting around about 70, 80 carbs an hour, or 350 calories an hour or so, around about that part, maybe 400, with some heavier meals like noodles and things like that. So we know we've got the energy intake right, and then we're looking for, all right, getting the fluids right. So if we know I've been eating, we know I'm still in the same somewhat running gear that I've been in, and we can see the weight where it is, then I can just eat like normal. If I come in from a lap and I've been to the toilet, twice on the lap and I'm peeing really clear, we just keep an eye on it. We just make sure the weight's up there. The moment we start stressing or start making a move to up is if we see the weight dropping and there's no indication of why, and I've been going to the toilet. If it's clear, I wouldn't go adding. In my case, I wouldn't go adding a lot of salts if the urine's really clear and I'd lost a lot of weight. There might just be an indication. Just need to up the water a little bit. So so if you're going to the toilet more than once a lap, and it's clear and big, you're going a lot, then it's probably, and your weight has dropped below where you wanted it to be, or stay around, and I mean, it's not going to matter if it drops by a kilo, but if it drops by like 5 kilos, you're out. So there's no way you can keep functioning as a human, so let alone running. So other laps would come in and we'd see my weight had dropped a little bit, but the urination rate might be like once on the lap and it might be a dark color, and that's an indication there's probably enough electrolytes happening there, and to just bring up the water consumption a little bit. That seemed to work spot on. I could eat whatever I wanted at that point because my gut was functioning perfectly. It's and I think that at the end of the race I still weighed the same as what I started at, so roughly about. So talking, sort of 150 miles without losing a kilo of body weight. It's like pretty cool. Like,
yeah. I remember when I was there last year, it was pretty cold, but it wasn't that cold. But it looks like it was colder this year, was it?
Different conditions. So last year, I think you remember we had ice on the little bridge.
Oh, I don't really
early in the
remember.
morning. A
Right.
little bit of ice in the early morning on the bridge. But yeah, it was there was a lot more humidity, which sort of like made it a little bit more difficult as far as like the way the cold felt on
Yeah.
the body. Um, and in the morning, they had really like heavy fog that you could only see maybe around about 2 meters in front of you, which was like quite bizarre running in because we didn't. I mean, I'd run the course enough so I knew where I was going, but yeah, if you're like if that happened, 60 hours in and you didn't know the course very well, I mean, you should
Yeah.
by that point, but let's say you didn't, you'd be a bit worried about where you were heading. So I did notice a lot of people that were still only going to the toilet. Like you talked to them, they'd been to the toilet for not three, like they'd go 3 laps, 2 laps without going to the toilet. And I don't think people realize, like, when we're talking in backyards, you're talking laps, and it doesn't sound like a long time, but if you were doing any form of exercise and you didn't go to the toilet for 2 or 3 hours, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And so that's why I try to keep it like going to the toilet once, a lap sort of thing. So
Yeah, for sure. Now, I forgot to ask when you mentioned your ankle, when you twisted the ankle or whatever happened to it, did that change your strategy at all?
it meant that I had to run really slowly and carefully.
Yeah.
So I had the plan of being able to do because I'd done the running artwork with and I know I can do 40-minute laps and quite comfortably, and it doesn't damage my race, and it just gives me more rest time. So I had planned to be able to do faster laps, so I could come in and do some sleep, and then slower laps, and I could vary it quite a bit because I know what I've got as far as my speed's concerned. But when I rolled the ankle, I realized that speed's out the window now. I can't land like really long strides and on rough ground with this ankle the way it is. So I had to change to a really conservative form because I was thinking ahead about how long I'm going to have to run on this dodgy ankle for now. So um, every side sort of had to ignore what time I was coming in because I wasn't going to be able to do the fast laps. I knew that from early on after I did the ankle. I think my first lap was in the 30s, and then after that, I can't remember when the ankle started. Run the really early ones, and then I kind of as soon as I knew it was starting to swell, it was like, okay, we're just going to have to run really conservatively, which in the end worked out all right because I don't think it meant that I didn't put a lot of strain on the body anywhere. And that was my limiting factor. Whereas if I kept running fast, I may have come up against other limiting factors. So, yeah.
So you mentioned that on a normal night you don't sleep that well, but what about at backyard ultras? Like, did you sleep at all during birdies?
Nah, in the afternoon I had a doze off. I'm one of those people that, like, in the middle of the day will start falling
Yeah.
asleep. So, yeah, I think the worst time for me is usually about 10 o'clock in the morning or late afternoon. Just the sun, afternoon sun or whatever. And yeah, I think I came in and I had a fair bit of time on lap and I laid down and just had a snooze and just about drifted off. And then I was like, oh, we had to get up. But it
Yeah.
wasn't that deep in the race yet. So I'm sure on the next day I would have started sleeping. I know how to do sleep laps now, but um, obviously with the ankle the way it was, I needed to come in a little bit quicker. I think most laps were around about 45 minutes. So I could try and get down for rest, but yeah, it was kind of not enough time for what I want. So yeah, I
Yeah.
know that I'm not a good, if the ankle's doing well, a 40-minute lap shouldn't be a problem. So
Yeah, yeah, cool. Now, when at the end on Facebook, Sean was interviewing you after the race, and it sounded like you were prepared, willing, and ready to just keep on going another night and no problem.
yeah, well, I think me and Charles had started running together. I mean, obviously you've spoken with Charles, and his beliefs, and which I have a lot of respect for him. Like he that's his morals, like, and his religious beliefs. He can't run on Sundays, and I have a lot of respect for him for that. And I knew that's what was going to happen when it was me and Charles, and Yohi. Um, he was looking like he was struggling quite a fair bit. So I kind of would like to have kept going. And at one point I'm like, well, Yohi, I don't think he's going to be able to continue. Like, maybe I said to the crew, maybe we'd just go over and talk to him. And I actually said before the race, like, because I have a habit of talking with other people, like people during the race, and talking myself out of the race.
Right.
And I said to Jocelyn before the race, I said, maybe it's like sort of fate that the person that could potentially go really big in this race is the person that I can't talk to.
Right.
So I'd kind of said to the crew, like, did you want to go over and like see if Yohi um, wants to end it, because like I don't want to keep running on this ankle and stuff it up more. And like and I think Aaron was there at the time as well, and they all looked at me and like, oh, we're not doing that. You're here to race and just focus on yourself. And I'm like, but like I've got if I take this out, then I've got the Sat Champs coming up, and I don't want to ruin it, like, because I know I can do this now, but like I don't want to ruin the ankle and ruin my chances. And they're like, no, we're not doing it. Just focus on yourself. I'm like, fine. Can you hand me my dinner then? Like, and I started asking for, and it was good because it just reset my brain to like, no, you don't worry about what everyone else is doing. You just need to focus on what you're doing and continue. And then I felt my brain just switch over to we're running all night, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. But it didn't end up happening. So I kind of got myself to the point where I was excited about running all night, and then it didn't happen. So, which is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Did that Japanese guy, did he get taken away to a hospital or something like that and then come back, or?
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating for him, I'd imagine, because he didn't actually speak any English, and like even on course we're try to like figure out ways to. I realize when you're out running and like there's apps that you can download, but we had terrible reception, so we couldn't actually download anything.
Yeah.
And then when you're out there, you realize how hard it is. Like the language barrier is massive. Like especially when you're running, because you see something or you want to say something really quick, and you can't do it.
Yeah.
And it was like it pointed at something, and I think it was like early in the morning there was like swans on the lake and the mist coming across, and I looked at Yohi and I said, pointed out at the swans on the lake, and he got. You could see him smiling. He's beautiful. I'm like, yes, got something.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem was because of that language barrier. No one could understand what he was going through, and no one knew how to help him. And I feel like if he came back again, like if we knew, knowing hindsight, that he wasn't able to keep that stuff in check. If someone was on that stuff for him, he would have gone really big. Yeah. A very strong runner.
Right.
Actually, minimalist runner as well.
So, really? Yeah.
Yeah, he actually got out a pair of the traditional Japanese running slides. So and ran a lap in those.
I saw a
photo. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, like they look like sandals, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool, cool, and like, and from another, to have another barefoot runner out there and at that end of the race, and we're like, oh, that's really, cool, like, getting a few of us barefoot runners out there. So,
so you mentioned before that you unpicked all your previous races leading into Birdies. Since Birdies, though, have you unpicked this race and figured out anywhere you could improve even more?
Oh, I hadn't actually thought about that one. Probably not rolling the ankle in the first few laps would be a good start.
Yeah.
But just also being on top of that mind game, because I don't think I've got it perfectly like yet. Just even me asking the crew to go talk to Yohi, like see what he wants to do. Does he want to continue? What's he going to do? Like that, I shouldn't be doing that. They're right. I should just be focusing on my race, because that's what I know I've become really good at. For instance, like I didn't used to, you know me, like at even when I was doing the running artwork, you notice when I didn't have when I wasn't doing the artwork, I wouldn't have headphones on, and I would start talking to everyone that I could sort of come across in the race to make a bit of conversation to keep my mind busy. What I found out was that was a big distraction for me. So now a lot of the times I got to have headphones on, and I didn't even have music on. It was just a kind of a case of I just need to focus on my own race at the time. And so at Light Horse, when I did a fairly big number, I put headphones on and just ran all night, just listening to podcasts. And I didn't actually know what position I was in or how I was running. And it's the same with Birdys this year. I didn't know what lap. I didn't really pay attention to what lap, what time I came in. Just as long as I was just still jogging, that was good. And the moment I start talking about the race, how everyone else is going, it seems to distract me a little bit from what I'm doing, and I start to think about all the things that are going wrong for me. Whereas if I just keep focused on my race and try to keep all the distractions to a minimum, I seem to do a lot better.
And how is the ankle now? Have you pulled up?
Been doing hiking and some just general slow running, lots of walking. Did a hike yesterday. My wife Jocelyn has been wanting to get into hiking, so we went down and spent probably only about a quarter of the amount that we'd spend on doing a backyard ultra to buy her some really good hiking gear. Puts it in perspective how expensive these races are. But she finally, I thought, well, she's done so much to support me and get me to where I am. So yeah, off to the hiking store. So got some hiking gear, and she's took her for a hike up the hills yesterday. And yeah, so ankle's doing really good with that sort of stuff. I definitely want to wait till it's like really good. I know that there's no point training yet because I'm only a week since the run, so it's just kind of understanding that whole process of overtraining and how the body responds to it. I know I'm not going to get anything good out of the training yet, so there's no point doing anything yet. And the ankle's healing well. I can run on it fine, but I'm not going to. And I think it'll be disrespectful to the rest of the team to go out and, rush things and injure myself. And yeah, in fact, that was probably what I was thinking on the last lap. I got halfway around, and then I think I was running at around about 450 pace, and then thought, oh, hang on a second, that's really disrespectful to the rest of the team. Like, it's taken a lot of people to get me to where I am. I better not race this like too fast and injure it more. So.
Yeah. What was it like running that last loop, knowing that you were the winner?
It'd be very easy to get carried away because it's quite euphoric. Like, oh, I'm like the last one here. Like, and you can, it's sort of like you realize how much of it's all mental at the end when you're on that last lap and you're like running like you haven't run at all. And it's kind of like you realize at that point and I think a lot of people miss out on getting to that point. I'm one of them, like where you think you're not good enough to continue and that everyone else is doing better. And everyone else like sort of has a tendency to look around them and judge how they're going against other people. But that's exactly like why I said the headphones work for me, is because I can't be focused on what anyone else is doing because that might throw me off. And at the moment you're off your game, it just takes like a weak moment and to think that, I've done enough at this point, or everyone else is going to keep going a lot further. And like, I think just being in that position enough times, I knew that this is the moment where everyone, like, you'll probably get the last bit of the field. You might get a couple that'll keep going, but around that, lap 30, it seems like you get a little cascade of runners who just, for whatever reason, decide that it's not their race, and they might underfuel at that point, and they might start quitting. And at that point is when I decided to, like, I hadn't been taking Panadol or anything to the sunset night on the Saturday, and I said to the crew, and I hadn't been having caffeine or anything, and I said, all right, I don't want to go into this night like I wanted to go into it strong, because I know that at that time is generally where everyone sort of drops off. So I'm just going to go into it really strong. So I said I'll have a bit of Panadol and caffeine now. I didn't need it, but it was probably evident like how well I was feeling towards the end of it. It was like, yeah, I was not going anywhere anytime soon. But yeah, just having that knowledge of where people sort of like that last, as you're getting towards that last lapse, and you don't know how close it is. I think that's the thing. You don't know how close it is, but don't tell yourself it's too far.
Yeah.
At that point. So
Yeah. And what are you going to do between now and the Sat Champs? I guess to make sure that you're ready to rock come up October.
yeah, so Sat Champs, I really want to get past that 60 lap, and I think I would have. I mean, if Charles had been able to keep going, we would have definitely made it through the night. We would have been in the 50s. Well, 50 would have been at lunchtime the next day. I can't really see me or Charles. I mean, Charles might. I think he was having a little bit of problems with food, but I feel like when we were running together, he may have been able to sort that out. So I'm going to assume that like we would have both got into the 50s. I don't think it would have been hard until we started pressing on to that third night, going into the cold again. That might have got a little bit difficult, or even the afternoon, late afternoon, but we'd be in the mid 50s by then. So, yeah.
So Charles did actually, I think he timed out. Is that right?
Yeah. He still had a lot in him. Obviously, as you could see as well, he took off. Like, yeah. I couldn't sprint like he could, but because I'd done quite a number on myself, and the leg was starting to get heavier with the swelling, but Charles could still take off like it was nothing. So, yeah, it would have been fantastic. But also on the same note, I mean, like, brilliant guy. Like, much respect to him. Like, and just to hold his beliefs. So,
yeah. Yeah, because I thought that the race, I thought he stopped maybe at 10 o'clock, or was it midnight when he stopped?
Nah, it wasn't. It wasn't midnight. He at one point he said he might go to lap 38.
Yeah.
And I said that's fine if you want to go to lap 38. That's no problem. But I think for both him and me, we had kind of realised that we're at the point really anything more out of continuing the run. Like we already knew that we could go much further than where we were going to end up. So yeah, it was he made the decision that we for the sake of the Sat Champs team we keep the ankle good. So we don't put it through more stress. So hence the reason why I thought it might be a bad idea to do a fast lap for the final.
So you were obviously part of the Australian team 2 years ago at Murray. And things were a bit different then. Like a lot of the runners didn't know each other. They'd never met each other or anything like that. But this year definitely feels a lot different. Like pretty much all the runners know each other. And it feels like they're all excited to run together again, and the vibe's going to be a lot different. So, I mean, you're obviously excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even during the race, like I hadn't qualified for the team, and I was getting, I had a lot of support from Tim, who was giving me some tips on like mindfulness out there running. I would have looked like a bit of a crazy person following his advice, but it worked. Talking to myself out there. But you know, and it's just a great team with like really supportive people from all walks of life. You know, I think that's what makes it a really exciting thing to be part of that team. It seems to represent the Australian spirit. We're all trying to get behind each other and like want to excel at our sport. And it's not just like we just want to make the team. We want to all contribute to the team and do the best that we possibly can to bring the numbers up. So
yeah, it's going to be unreal. So it's probably hard to think past the Sat Champs at the moment, but are there any backyards you know that you'll be running in next year?
Um, at the moment, probably not. I think my coach was a little bit disappointed when, in a way, a little disappointed that I made the team because I think he's been itching to get me to go to like 100K races and that because
Yeah.
obviously quite good at fast road running. But this was my sort of goal is to make this team. And we've done that. So now the focus just will obviously be on this, and then hopefully at the end of the year, we'll get me in a 100K race
Yeah.
of a decent sort of pace. So
Yeah, cool. What about Dead Cow Gully next year?
oh, haven't thought. I mean, it's like I would love to do some of these courses, but also Australia is such a big country, and like with a family, and it's like to travel around the country and get to these races, it's a big expense and also a lot of time away. And if the family's not coming, you're going off, and then I suppose it sort of comes back to that thing that I feel is like sometimes a little bit selfish with the sport.
Mm.
But I've also learned that it's not selfish if you're giving it everything. It's selfish if you go and just go, oh, I'm just going to go in it just because,
Mm.
and you don't really try. So, but yeah, now I've learned to sort of put more effort in, and that's probably one of the mistakes going over East is I didn't do all the prep work, and it sort of you come back feeling a little bit selfish about going over there and spending all that time, and then not putting in the certain and I'm not just talking the training, it's like all the preparation work to get it to come to fruition on the day, and you come back a little bit deflated. So and it's not a great feeling. So like with going over to Dead Cow Gully, I'd need to make sure that I brought my A game and got things right, just like I did for this race, and like I plan to do for Sat Champ. So I think I have a lot to depend on um, how I progress forward as an athlete, getting things right and spot on, so that I'm not wasting people's time. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, Chris, I mean, you would know that I like asking my guests for their three backyard ultra tips at the end of the podcast. What are your three backyard ultra tips?
ooh, okay. My backyard tips would be now. I'm sure I'd love to actually. I would love to go back over what the previous ones were.
Yeah, well,
But
I don't think I asked back then. I think it's I've started asking since then.
yeah, yeah. So number one would be find out what you're good at in running, and build on that. So don't go, oh, I want to do a backyard and I'm a really good marathoner. But so what I'll do is I'll go out and run, let's say you're a 2:30 marathon runner.
Mm.
You don't go out and just start running 5 minute pace and running 200 kilometers at 5 minute pace a week. That's not your skill set. You aim at the skill set that you're best at. So for me, it was like, I'm really good at speed endurance, not so good at sprinting. And you sort of want to capitalize on that. And that's not to say that you don't don't work on the other areas, but you can't lose that thing that makes you a good runner. And you need to carry that into the race. It's one of your strengths. Second of all would be like, obviously surround yourself with people who can do what you can't do, and try to figure out ways to make it work for you. So like I was saying, how some people get the nutrition and the hydration spot on just naturally. If you can't do that, then implement a different system that might actually help you to manage that, something that you're not good at. So in my case, managing the fluids, and that meant that I can, fuel myself indefinitely now, and I don't have to stress if am I doing this right, am I doing that right. So, and then what's another one? They come up with three of them now. I would say strength work too is something that so Aaron's been helping me go to the gym, get me started. I was one of those guys that wouldn't go to the gym because I thought I was just for gym junkies to look how big my arms are, which
Yeah.
ironically I know is like I've team strong arms, but that's more a running joke. Um, but yeah, going to do the strengths work gave me another outlet from away from the running that was different and that actually strengthened the body. And I could actually feel that during the race. There was no part of me that felt obviously like rolling ankles and stuff like that, but I knew the rest of me was really strong. So that was like another really big key point. But yeah, I mean, there's so much when you really dig deep and like look into the sport and what, like for instance, like the don't lose hope in yourself is another big one. I've seen so many people that are just at the right on the cusp of doing something big, and I think you're in that group too, Pato. When you think, oh, it's just I've done enough, or it's like I've been there so many times, like that when you think it's not your race, and then everyone else stops, and you're like, oh, if I just kept going, it's like, yeah, like, but it's hard when you're in that moment to realize that you should keep going and that it might just be that close. But yeah, don't lose hope in a race because it's sort of self-fulfilling. It'll make you stop. So
yeah, it's true.
yeah, and I think a lot of people didn't know how swollen my ankle was at the time, and and it's like if they'd known that, it'd kind of be like that moment where they realize like, oh, maybe I could win this. And yeah, I honestly think there's a lot of people out there who could win that race, but they lose that little bit of hope somewhere in the race and just decide that it's not going to happen for them today. So.
And with the gym, have you noticed that you've got more muscly?
Yeah, actually, I found the gym. Like with the training that I've done for this, the coach was focusing on long runs and speed sessions. It wouldn't look like a typical backyard ultra training. But what I found was with the gym work that I lost a lot of that excess like body weight that's just around like your abs and stuff like that, and started to get like really a better physique like tonally, rather than just a runner that just looks a little bit weak and stuff on course. I felt like a lot stronger as far as, and then physically, kept the weight, basically where I started at, but it swapped it out for muscle instead of fat. So yeah, I did notice it make a difference in that regard. And I haven't even probably only going about once a week, but I mean for about an hour and a half with Aaron. But yeah, just a massive change as far as the physique at my physical build as far as a runner. Yeah, so I definitely recommend the gym work. Obviously need someone that knows what they're doing with it, but I had Aaron who helped me through with it. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well look, thanks heaps for coming on, and congratulations on your performance at Birdys and making it back into the Australian team.
Yeah, it's a bit surreal. Hoping that I knew I could do a big number at Birdys at the time, so now I really, obviously I didn't get to do that, but now it's kind of a case of like, okay, hopefully I can get it back there to that spot without the ankle being an issue. I mean, there could be an issue, but we'll deal with that when it comes to it. But just like at Birdys, we'll deal with it and try to get to that big number.
Well, what gives you more confidence? Do you think you've got more confidence going in as being the last one standing and like earning a silver ticket, or getting in the way you got in last time by running that 9 yards?
Well, it's tricky, like, because I don't want to be the runner that doesn't do it for the team. So I really, really wanted to get the numbers to show that I could do it both ways.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. So now I'm sort of stuck with that speculation. Like, oh, no, I know it, like, but I know how I felt at the time when the race ended. And it's like, okay, you were feeling that, and it felt like it was less. I'd already, I think the last time I ran 39, I was quite all over the place as far as my mental state. And this time I'm literally sitting around the fire chatting with people and having a great time before the lap starts. And it's just night and day different to how I was last time. So yeah, it's frustrating not having not having the opportunity to run the number, but on the other side of it, we haven't got long to get ready to do those big numbers. So, and that's probably the reason that we were chatting about before, that Ryan and Ben,
James.
James, yeah, yeah, probably that's probably the reason they didn't continue, because I know that they've got a big race coming up. They both look like they could, but at this point, we've got a job to do. So
that's it. They definitely went a bit longer than I expected them to.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think Ryan's capable of doing a massive number, and so it's kind of like a case of they may have just said, nah, like if we go to the point where this is actually going to hurt, it might be a lot further, but it also might hurt our chances of doing really well at the Sat Champs. So I think it was quite strategic, like them delaying, they'll have to wait to do their big number, but I think you'll get a chance to see it at the Sat Champs. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. Look, enjoy the rest of your day, Chris. Great to have you on, and we'll definitely be in touch. I'll see you at the Sat Champs because I'll be there too, just doing the live stream.
Yeah. Oh, great to see you again. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Don't go anywhere. I'll just hit stop and no
worries.
See you, mate.
Thanks.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, it would be awesome if you could share, comment, like, subscribe, all of that. If you've got any feedback, shoot me a message. Hope you have a great day. See ya.